Hi family, today I started with this video because I've been thinking a lot about how we get a ton of questions about composting, and these doubts kind of keep us from getting started with composting. Composting is super easy. Actually, what happens is that when you start researching how it's done, in what way, what the components are, and so on and so forth, we come across a bunch of techniques, steps, and things that make us think that if we don't have those things or don't follow those steps, we can't make our own compost. With this video, the intention is to show you that making compost is easy and that the compost will adapt to your own circumstances, not you having to adapt to a specific type of compost. So we're going to show you the most important things to keep in mind, and you'll see which way works best and easiest for you so you can do it. More than half of the waste you produce is organic. And if we changed a few small habits, we could reduce our trash, our environmental footprint, as they say now. And not only that, but we would also produce pure gold. Because it's food for the earth, and the earth is what gives us our food. In the kitchen, we have a big bucket where we put all the organic waste, eggshells, potato peels, when you peel a carrot, leftovers from any vegetable that's gone bad, all of that goes in there. Coffee grounds, tea leaves, some paper, some small pieces of paper, some bits of cardboard as long as they don't have ink, too much ink. And what we don't put in that bucket are things that we've cooked. We also don't put meat scraps or cold cuts. On the other hand, outside, what we do is set aside and dry things. For example, when we sweep up dry leaves, we leave them to the side and separate them. When we cut the grass, we let it dry, and when it's dry, we also set it aside. Because all of that will be the dry organic material that we will use later in the compost. As I was saying, there are several types of compost and several ways to prepare it. This depends on each person's possibilities, motivation, space, and thousands of factors unique to each individual. Where can we prepare it? For example, in an old paint bucket in the frame of a washing machine that someone has thrown away. We can prepare it in boxes, we can prepare it in compost bins that we buy, but it's not necessary. We can prepare it in a pile, meaning make it in a corner at the back of the house in piles. Covered with a plastic sheet, we can prepare it in a large wooden box made from pallets that we've set up because we have a lot of space, and there we can also make a large amount of compost. We can prepare it wherever you want. Once we choose where we're going to prepare it, this is the secret. It's done in layers. The first layer will be dry material. The dry material, as I was saying, can be small twigs, it can be dry leaves, it can be sawdust, it can be dry grass. Then, on top of this layer of dry matter or dry organic material, we are going to put the wet organic material. These are the kitchen scraps, for example, the ones I showed you that we had in the bucket. It can also be the grass we just cut, which is still green. That is also wet material. The dry material should always be in greater quantity than the wet material. For example, if we add 1 part of wet material, we always add 2 parts of dry material. And on top of all that, we can add, for example, some black soil, just a little bit of black soil. Or we can add a bit of compost that's already prepared. Or we can add anything else that acts as an activator, we'll see. For example, it could be that you left some rainwater collecting in a place for a week. Well, that water that's kind of yellowish, that's perfect. You can pour it in, it works as an activator. You made a nettle tea, that's a real treat, as they say. You can add it and it acts as an activator, and that's perfect. Well, and then on top, another layer of dry material, and we can mix it a little to aerate it so oxygen gets in, which will help the microorganisms. And if we see that it's too dry, we can add a little bit of water. When we add water, what we need to keep in mind is that the water we're adding is to moisten, not to soak. We always have to make sure that our composter is moist and warm. Why? It will make the microorganisms work faster. There will be more microorganisms, and this decomposition process will happen more quickly. This is the foundation, but if For example, we have a huge composter and we can keep doing it. I mean, keep adding more and more layers, always in this order. We can keep doing it until the composter is full. This layers upon layers. You start with a bucket. You did it in 3 layers. You keep going until you fill the bucket. And it's the same with the composter we choose, with the composter we're working with. If we make compost in this type of plastic container, we have to make holes at the bottom so that the liquid can drain out. That's what comes out of the compost. Because if we don't do that, it would rot. With this one, it's not necessary because the soil itself manages all that liquid. That last layer we're going to add when we finish filling everything up always has to be made of material. Dry organic matter. Because what this will do is preserve the moisture of all the compost. The material has to be dry leaves, right? Dry grass, dry organic matter. But anyway, we have to moisten it with a hose because it always has to be damp. There are also options. For example, you can add worms to that compost you're preparing. Regular worms. Also, if you want, you can add red wigglers. If you don't want to, you don't have to add worms because the worms will come anyway. You can add the activator I mentioned or skip it if you prefer. If you want, you can add a little compost, or if not, just take some soil from your garden, as long as it isn't completely dead. If it looks dark and alive, then you can add a little soil and that's it. And if you don't add it, it will still be made from dry organic matter and kitchen scraps or wet organic material. It will work the same way. Remember that composting is a natural biological process. In the forest, there's a giant tree that drops its leaves, and those leaves fall to the ground. That dry material starts to decompose. And underneath, if we dig through those leaves that keep falling, one on top of another, we'll find compost. And that compost is what fertilizes that same tree. So it's a natural process. Even if we do it better or worse, it's going to happen anyway. Sometimes compost smells bad. It gives off a foul odor. In that case, we need to pay a little more attention. Most likely what we need to do is add more dry organic matter. Stir it a little more often. Usually stirring once a week or once every 10 days is more than enough. Stir it a little so that oxygen gets in, and add organic matter, because if it smells bad, something is definitely rotting. It's in bad condition, and it's simply because of that. If we see worms or some bugs, some flies, as long as there aren't too many, that's also fine because those little creatures will help in this decomposition process, just like earthworms. If we see too many flies, that's it. We usually need to add more dry organic matter. Usually the biggest mistakes in composting come from not having enough dry organic matter. Compost is used as a basic fertilizer when you're going to plant, when you're about to start planting in a garden bed. And if not, it's used as a natural fertilizer. Because remember that compost provides nutrients and also retains moisture. That's why you'll save on watering by making compost. Compost is great. It also increases the soil's permeability, so it's amazing. Ideally, you should leave the composter in a sunny spot. Now, if we live in places with very high temperatures or summers with very high temperatures, then what I would recommend is at least partial shade. The dry matter in the compost will provide carbon, and the wet matter in the compost will provide nitrogen. When these two come together, the temperature rises, and this creates the wonderful process of composting. Every week, as I mentioned, every 10 days, you must not forget to stir, to mix, to aerate, because this will greatly benefit the microorganisms. Well, and this compost will be ready in 3 to 6 months. There are some compost batches that break down much faster and are ready in 3 months, and there are others that take a little longer and are ready in 6 months. Anyway, we can observe and determine if it's ready or not when we see that when we take it from the bottom, we can't distinguish the organic remains. You see, if we take it from the top, we can tell apart a piece of banana peel, a piece of orange peel, an eggshell. Well, that means the compost isn't ready yet. It's still breaking down. When we take it from the bottom and we can't tell things apart anymore, that tells us the compost is ready. Another thing that tells us it's ready is that it has a really pleasant smell, like fresh earth. It's wonderful. Sometimes when we make compost in buckets or other types of containers, for example, a liquid is produced that drips down into the compost. That liquid is called leachate, and we can use it as fertilizer, but the important thing is that we have to dilute it in water. It can't be used directly. How much water should you add to the composter? You should add water whenever you see that your composter is, let's say, asking for water. You go stir it, and if you feel that it's dry, that it still needs moisture, that it's not damp, that's when you should add water. Without flooding it, without soaking it, just a little bit to moisten it. What we need to maintain, what we need to focus on to make sure everything goes well, is keeping the heat and moisture in our composter. When we make compost, for example, in a pile instead of in a container, what we need to keep in mind is to put a plastic sheet on top, because this will help create more moisture in our compost pile, let's say. And it will also make it so that when it rains, the nutrients being generated there don't get washed away as much. They won't escape, they won't go everywhere. That's why it's important to always put a plastic sheet on top. But if you don't have the plastic, don't put it on. You'll still get compost that will be useful for you. This is our goal for this video. Do it however you can, based on your circumstances. Possibilities aren't just about money, but also time, motivation, and willingness. There are a lot of personal circumstances involved, and that doesn't mean you can't do it or that you're missing something in order to make it happen. Many times we had a lot of work here and we didn't have time to do all the steps. So, what we did was throw the organic waste into a pit that we made in the ground, in all this land that was in really bad shape at first. And that's where we threw the organic waste. We would throw in dry leaves, a good amount, and then we would cover it with soil. And that's it, as they say. And that's where the compost was made all by itself. And the next year or 6 months later, when we went to plant there, the plants thanked us because it was amazing. I mean, it was really rich material too. I mean, let's not limit ourselves. Let's work with what we have. No. Well, and here with this crazy shot. From the bottom of our hearts, we wish you success with your gardens and that you achieve food self-sufficiency. May you fill your spaces with native species, native trees, and native fruit trees. Native fruit trees will give us fruit in 3 or 4 years without any problems, and they are a real delicacy. We truly want this to catch on. We want it to spread to everyone. Even if it's just a small corner with some lettuce, some onions, some herbs, whatever it may be. Because once you start, you can't go back. We know that once they get those little plants, they'll just want more. And they'll want tomatoes, and they'll want more unusual things, and golden berries, and squash. And from there, they'll move on to fruit trees. And every time our horizons keep expanding more and more. And we realize that it's not just about food sovereignty, it's not just about eating well, it's not just the health that comes from eating what the land gives us and harvesting our own food, but it's also about returning to the land, touching the earth, the plants, nature, the birds, to feel how we drifted away from all of that. And reconnecting is like grounding ourselves. And we realize that many illnesses start to heal just by being on the land. We realize that anxiety, depression, and a lot of other things that are caused by stress, by the dynamics of the city, and so on, etc. It begins to fade, but it won't vanish overnight. But it gradually disappears. That's why sometimes when people write to us and push themselves too hard, trying to know everything, trying to learn the best technique, when they also demand things from others. No, you didn't tell me this was missing in the video, that was missing. We see that being that hard on yourselves is cruel. And it causes all those states of imbalance in your health later on. That's why it's best to get your hands in the soil. Create, have your own experience, and let things turn out however they have to. Because that journey is unique, it's yours, it's your family's, your place. Your plants, your connection, your way, your language. And I am very hopeful because honestly, plants, cultivating the land teaches us to be kind, to be kinder, It's something that's inevitable. We start to see what that world of nature is like, and we become more natural ourselves. And nature is kindness. Alright, I don't want to philosophize too much. Thank you for watching this video. I hope it helps you a lot. I tried to make this shot kind of creative, but my neck ended up all twisted. Alright, a big kiss. We love you very much. A huge hug. And see you in the next video.
Bye. Bye.